so a couple of techniques here for handles. I've taken and I've cut out a couple little sections of paper here that are going to get me in the range that I want for my handle. I want to consider the shape of the handle, where I'm gonna put it, how it's going to fit to this piece. Do I want it directly in? Do I want it coming well out of the pot? How is that balanced? Now this is a little bit thicker, a little bit longer than I want, but that's better because I can trim down my clay. Two different profiles here. One's much thicker. They both taper. I generally like my handles to have a little bit less material at the base, but one tapers more. So you'll look at it and decide, what do I want? You can then take that and just add it, take it and set it on your little slab that you've rolled out, and then trim it. And that paper will give you a pretty good estimation of what you just saw on the side of your pot. I very often use paper templates. I use paper templates when I'm doing steel fabrication, when I'm doing clay, when I'm working with wax. I use paper templates a lot. So now I can take and I can bend this piece to fit my cup. I can decide I want to flare this out a little bit and have a little flare at the bottom. I can have it go directly into the piece. I'm going to decide what it is I like, and then I will incorporate that into the piece. So I think I like it going directly in below this rim, and then I can tie it into that rim by pressing when I slip and score. I know that my profile's got some curve to it, so I'll take that and trim that off, giving myself a little bit more of a comfortable purchase to the rim of the cup. And then what I want to do is I want to get roughly in the vicinity of where I want my handle to be, and then I'll trim that off if it's long. And I generally I like to go directly in at the rim and then have a taper at the base, right? Now, that doesn't look quite proportionate to me, so I can play with that, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to get a little bit more leather hard. I want the basic shape, and then this is very thick for a piece like this, so I can always come in and I can carve that down and shape it. So what I would do is I'd take that off, set it aside, let it dry a little bit, and I can work with it from there. And I can also add textures to that or whatever I might want. Now, the handles I generally make is a pulled handle. And so what I want is, I basically want a little wedge that tapers at the base and is a little thicker at the top. And that's how I start. So this is kind of that slab throwing technique that we talked about earlier, on a miniature level. And I can keep doing that to get to where I want. But basically what I want to do is be able to hold this piece, and I'll pull the clay down with my hand. It's going to give a contour in the shape of my hand. In order to do that, I need wet hands. So my holding hand shouldn't be wet so that I can hold on, and then I just want to keep dipping my hand in the clay or in the water to keep it slippery. And what you'll find is that you're pulling this and you're closing as I'm pulling it, I'm closing on it. So I'm going to keep that taper going. So that's why you want to start with a little bit of a taper. Some people like to work all the way around the piece. Some people like it to kind of form, it's going to be held by a hand, right? So making it with your hand gives you natural ergonomics that you wouldn't necessarily get if you just use the slab. I also have a taper here that's getting thick to thin, which gives me a little bit more body, a little bit more to work with once I get my handle in a position that I like. Now, one of the cool things here is I can take and just have my thumb and run my thumb down the center of this. And that's gonna give me a different shaped handle that now my thumb fits perfectly into when I'm holding on to it, right? Now, if I'm right-handed and I use my right hand, it's probably gonna form fit to my right hand a little bit more. Then what I like to do is take and stick this to a board. I don't have a board right now. I'm just gonna let this sit and dry. Stick this to a board, straight up and down. Hopefully you can see that. And give it a little bit of shape. So that shape, that profile from this point, I'll cut it off when it's good and dry. That profile will be transferred to my cup later if that's what I choose to do. Okay, here we're gonna go ahead and add our handle now. This has been sitting out for over an hour. The clay is stiff now. I don't want to normally I wouldn't handle it like this, but I just want to show you how stiff it is, right? It's holding shape no matter which way I go. This is the leather hard stage. I've mentioned it before. It holds its shape and it's a bit more stiff, so it will have a little bit more body to it when I go ahead and stick it on. I want to look at my piece and decide where I want to apply this handle. I'm going to go with this handle. I like this style of handle a lot better. You can cut it any number of ways. A lot of people like the wire tool. Looking at my piece and lining it up, I know I only need a little bit of this top portion of the handle, so I can just slice that off there. And then I definitely don't need this whole tail on here, so I'll go ahead and slice that off there. I can shape that later, but that's essentially my handle. And I'll go ahead and kind of line it up and look at it and say, okay, I want more or less arch, so I can pull this down in. I need a little bit more in this area right here. So I'll bend that a little bit. Trying to basically line it up with the contour. Obviously I don't quite have that right there. So I know I need to bend this portion down a little bit, and then I'll get it to where I'm lined up fairly well. Now I'll do that same thing I did earlier, and I'll cut a portion of this out, allowing for it to kind of fit the contour of my piece a little better. I'm going to trim some of this off too. I don't need quite so much material up here. It can be nice to have a nice thick spot for your thumb to sit, but if it's getting in the way of actually adhering to the piece and conforming to the shape of the piece, then you'll want to avoid that. Now again, a lot of these positions that I'm in are so you can see what I'm doing with the camera. So I'm kind of carving that out. Now I normally would hold this right here in front of me, and I would hold it so that I could carve this and see it, and I was in a comfortable position. It wouldn't matter about the camera, but because this is specifically for the camera, I want you to see what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how I'm doing it. So that fits a lot better now. Then I'll go ahead and slip and score both positions so that I can get this nice and adhered to my piece. And I'll go ahead and pause the video, slip and score this, and then show you attaching it. Okay, so here I am. I've got my slip and score on there. Anytime I go to press a handle or anything on, I want to support my material. I want to make sure that I'm pressing in to my hand. Otherwise, I'll make it oblong. You see I'm pressing in from the inside. I'm using my finger and my thumb to really press down from the sides. I'm then taking my finger up under the handle and my thumb on the top and pressing in from the top. That gives me that indentation I want. Then I'll go ahead and do the same down here on the bottom, pressing in from the inside as well as the outside, really making sure that really sticks on there. And then if I want, I can kind of taper that out on either side, making it a little bit more seamless. You can see I've got extra material sitting up there. I can take my needle tool or any of my knife tools and kind of trim that off so that it's not below the base of the pot. And then all I gotta do is trim this out so there's no high center and clean up these edges, and then I can add on good.